Amazing. Well, welcome everybody. We are so glad to have you all. We hope you all enjoyed all of your sessions so far and you learned a lot of things and you got to meet a lot of really great and successful people today.
Vincent, we can just start.
All right, so we are just going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. So, Marissa, do you want to go ahead and go first?
Sure. My name is Marissa J. Gomes. I use she, they pronouns. I'm an MSW intern with Chris.
Perfect. And then my name is Grace Nielsen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a current junior in my BSW at the University of Missouri in Columbia. Call it Mizzou if you've ever heard of it. But I am one of the student assistants within CRISP and on our leadership team this year.
So a couple of agenda items. We're going to do welcome. So in the chat, we want to see you in there. Put your name, pronouns, where you're calling from, and what flavor ice cream your day has been like so far. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to do that in the chat. And then we're going to do the panelist introductions for Q&As, lobbying basics, and go over what's Chris Advocacy Day, review the Child Bill and Family and Electoral Act, and also do a lobbying a little mock.
Maria, I don't know why, but my day has also been a very mint chocolate chip-esque day, and I can't even explain it. So all right, so we'll wait till we get a few more people in there, and then we'll keep going.
Okay, let's see. Shannon from Florida. Ooh, pistachio. A little nutty. I could get on board with that.
Marissa, is that what your flavor is for the day?
I think it is pistachio, yeah. It's in pretty nuts. Literally, figuratively, yes.
I feel that deeply. All right, perfect. Well, people are more than welcome to keep adding into the chat, but we'll go ahead and move on. All right, so why do we lobby as students? And when we think of the word lobby, we also kind of mean the word advocacy, because I think both of those can kind of play hand in hand, whether we are advocating for policy changes, whether we are lobbying for a specific topic that we're passionate about. All together, we're trying to demonstrate this collective power that we have as social workers together, whether we're students or we're professionals in our MSW or BSW. But when we lobby, it's to make officials aware of community members. And I think this is going to tie in a little bit later, but as social workers, we're seen to look at someone's problem from the lens of their environment and see them as people first. And so whenever we're making elected officials aware of these things, we bring it about it from a perspective of that person and environment. And so we also lobby to build ongoing relationships with legislators. We lobby to determine where a legislator stands on legislation, and then to hold them accountable. I think a lot of the times we see these promises being made within our government, and by lobbying and by advocating for the people that we work with, we're able to make sure that the things that they're promising are actually done. And then also just to move officials towards supporting our cause or opinion. Obviously, we are all very passionate individuals about a lot of things. And I think that's said just by being in social work in general. And so by taking our opinions and taking our stances on things based off the things that we see within our work, we're able to move officials towards those different aspects and stances.
Yeah, so advocating as a student, I just got off a call right now with one of the representatives for New York State on the Zoom meeting. So if you haven't already met your representatives or political social workers via Zoom, we strongly encourage you to do so. There's one at 4 to 4:30 and 4:30 to 5. But if you haven't yet, you want to introduce yourself, your district and state, if they represent you, and what group organization you currently are with. So, for instance, I go to Columbia University. So, when I was meeting with a representative, we're like, "Hi, I'm Marissa. I'm from New York State or Columbia University, New York State. You're my representative in my district." And what group organization I involved with? We're involved in Chris Advocacy Day. So, I introduced myself as a fellow. Also found some common ground. So, the congressional person I was just on the call with said that They were really advocating for anti-poverty efforts, and their office really advocated for child welfare. So if anything, um, we found common ground at that point where we're saying, oh, I saw like your office did the tax credit that benefited a lot and eliminated the floor for a lot of my clients and a lot of those people I work with to actually get some aid. So, that was one example that we talked about right now where it was just kind of like finding common ground, but clearly staying our position. So, for instance, the bill 5856, the 21st Century Child Welfare Act, we clearly stay our position that we were for the bill, but we also voiced some concerns that the bill may be lacking, that this representative can poke holes in to see. Because again, we may be part of a system, but the system may or may not be fully functioning or fully broken. So kind of poking holes in what needs to be changed for specific bills that are being advocated for is also a unique tool that social workers have, especially regarding child welfare acts and child welfare bills. So clearly seeing your position, keep it short if you're meeting with a representative, but also key examples of like, hey, I noticed in the 5856 child welfare bill, there wasn't anything to prevent discrimination from the child if they're a queer or trans child of youth. You know what I mean? Just because from my personal perspective, from my personal and professional point example or life experience, I've had clients come into me and say, oh, well, if this child's gay, then we're going to consider not adopting them. And I was just like, well, is there any way to protect this child in this placement right now, even though like my supervisor may not agree with what's going on? Is there any local bills to help protect queer babies? So that's one example of how you can clearly state your position in the bill, but also the unique tools that social workers bring to the field.
All right. And so part of advocating and part of lobbying is using our personal stories. I think whenever we talk to our representatives, we can spit facts at them all day and we can tell them the things that they probably already know or have heard over and over again. But when we bring our experiences to the table, that's what drives emotional connection and that's what drives human connection. And that's how we make a change. And so not only, explaining your position with facts, but also those stories, because at the end of the day, you're advocating for policies that not only affect you, but they affect your clients and it affect your clients' families. And so making sure those legislators understand the ramifications of that is so important. So an example, for instance, is I work in domestic violence prevention at a domestic violence shelter. And so for me, I see a lot of the time how the Family Medical Leave Act impacts our clients by not being able to take paid leave off whenever they're staying in shelter from work. And that loss of income impacts their ability to find housing, meaning they have to stay in shelter longer or they're forced to go back to their abuser. So I think it's really important, especially from that person environment, to make sure that they understand that you're not just seeing how policy is impacted and made, but seeing how it's impacting our clients' lives on a day to day basis. Policy is typically made in this top down kind of structure and foundation, but sometimes policy should be made from this down up structure, seeing what's happening in our clients' lives and then making policy based off those experiences.
Yeah, just to reiterate, the federal legislation, local, federal, state, it affects you and affects your clients because the personal is political. And to make sure representatives understand, their actions and how they vote does make a difference. So, okay. So, advocating as a student, you can ask them to take some specific actions in such as sponsoring a bill, voting for or against a bill, petitioning a measure, or meeting with your chapter or representatives. If you don't know the question to it, you can say so, but often offer that you'll get the answer. So, for example, when we met in these Zoom breakout rooms today, um, one of the questions the representative asked was like, oh, do you know the statistics of how many children in child welfare are affected in foster youth? So we did not know the answer to that specific one, but one of them quickly pulled up Google, searched it, and sent it out. So it's like, oh, this according to this Pew study, this is what it's found. But it took a while for us to get back to that question. As well as it was an open-ended question because a lot of representatives usually are commonly get calls from people where it's like, oh, I want you for this bill. Oh, I want you against this bill. But they don't really ask them like, hey, what are you doing? Specific bills and policies and proposals is your office doing to help with child welfare or like to help with this and that. So they kind of are used to an aggressive audience. But if you have an open ended question where you ask specific actions of that person, where it's like, hey, what are some bill proposals you have in mind with your policies that are going to help child welfare? And so that's where it bridges the gap, makes it more humane and not like the sticky toxicity of what politics could become and what politics is polarized as right now. But it really brings down that bridge. It's like, okay, hey, you're a human, I'm a human. We all just want to care about the same topic. Let's talk about it, you know? And if you don't know the answer, get back to them. And also you want thank them and leave a follow-up questions, follow-up note, follow-up email. So I hope all of you, who meet with representatives can be like, hey, thank you so much for meeting with us. I really appreciate your time. Here are specific actions for the bills. If there's any way I can volunteer for your campaign or to advocate for this bill in your office, please let me know. So you can also network with them too, where it's like, hey, I'm really interested in this bill proposal or really interested in like how you got into politics. Can I have a 15-minute informational interview with you to explore more about that and how you became involved in this bill? Right? So I think all of us have an interest in political social work. So, or at least some realm of that, whether we're clinical, whether we're macro, whatever track we are. But I think it's like to really emphasize that, hey, we all want to contribute to having a better government than what we were left off with. So if that's the case, that's what you can bring to the table and have a conversation about it. Oh, and welcome, Alexandra. It's okay, you're joining late. I wonder how your rocky road of a day has been, Rosa. Okay. So we're going to stop here real quick. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, sweet. We're just talking about meeting with representatives. So if you want, how is that experience with you?
It was
Oh,
okay. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I just wanted to share because it definitely would be touch too tight. I just got out of it, and this is my second time doing this event. I've done it as a bachelor's in social work, and now I'm a master's, and I've already done it for my district. So I was representing Fordham University. So I talked with the representative for the congresswoman in New York, and I was the only person to talk out of my group. So it was, and I'm not even from New York. It was very awkward. It was so awkward. And they were like asking if we were waiting for the congresswoman. And so definitely I was like over talking, I think, because I felt so bad because no one was saying anything. I just had to share so people could feel my pain.
No,
it's
that's
okay.
We're all in it together. I was in one of our sessions this morning, and it was about what do we need as young social workers to make like a political impact. And one of the things he was talking about was, calling our representatives. And he was like, it's going to be really scary the first time you do it because you're not going to know what to say, or you like might say too much. But once you do it once, it gets so much easier to do it the second time and the third time. And he's a professor, and so he always makes it a part of his assignments for the classes, like call them about something, anything, just do it. And I think that's just a really great message to say we all start somewhere. And even if that is, making a couple phone calls compared to like, testifying in front of them about an issue you care about, we all have a starting place, and it's okay to, have those awkward Zoom meetings with them.
Anyone else want to come up on camera and like tell us their experience so far? Derry? Oh no, I can't hear you. I think you're still muted. Hold on. Unmute. Okay, I hope we get that fixed out, Derry, but okay, we're having someone else come up.
Yeah, I was okay. I was wondering how you guys decided who was going to speak to who and in what group and everything.
Oh, like the breakout rooms for the Zoom meetings?
Yeah, because mine was at like 2:00.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what happens is that the planning committee tried to match you with the close representative based on your state. So all through registration, like we went through universities, so all Columbia students got a New York State representative, or all University of Texas got a Texas representative. And then again, if some representatives didn't show up, or if other political social workers weren't available, we kind of just like scrammed together groups that bunched in there. So it kind of depends on if you're early registration or a late registration group, where you kind of fell in that. But also all the people that we matched you up with today via Zoom, yeah, it was based on the university versus the state you resided in. So we kind of based off the university, assuming that you live there, but I know not everyone lives there. So I was just kind of based intuition.
So my college is in New York, and I also live in New York, and I got the representative from Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And nobody else in the group knew what we were talking about, or they thought that he was going to be presenting something to us, and it was just,
oh no.
Yeah,
he left after 10 minutes.
It happens. I think when you have so many people and so many professionals trying to coordinate all of that, we try our best, but at the end of the day, they're busy. And so, 10 minutes is better than nothing, I suppose.
Yeah, and also, like, if it's really awkward, if no one really knows what's at, just make it a meet and greet where it's like, hey, we're really interested in, like, how you got into politics. Can you tell me more about yourself? And just having a representative talk about themselves, they'll take up the whole time, So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay, see, perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pilla. Andrea?
Yeah, I just think that I was a little confused too, and I had the similar situation as Alexandra, where not a lot of people were talking, and I wasn't even sure. I didn't know that we had to lobby this bill. I had read the information and all that, but I guess I was unclear on the instructions. But I mean, definitely, I am enjoying the day, and I feel like there is so much knowledge that is being like handed to us right now, so I'm like thankful for the experience.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think the meet and greets or like even the Q&As with the representatives were to necessarily lobby for the bills that we're teaching you. We were just using it or giving you the PowerPoints as a way to like make conversation if you had nothing else to say. But that's not to say that you can't call them after this is over, or tomorrow, or the next week to do the same with these bills that you learned about here.
I guess the person that I was with thought that we had a lobby for the bill, so I just wasn't prepared for that.
Well, that is so fair.
Yeah, that's what the person I was with thought as well. They were like, you're supposed to speak to what do you want to talk to me about? This is why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was very annoying.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. And unfortunately, like a lot of congressional people, like they'll take a 15-minute, 20-minute, maybe 30-minute call. Sometimes they'll be in their backyard. Sometimes they'll be like on the hill. Sometimes they'll be like wherever. And like, unfortunately, they do not want to talk to constituents about bills. Like, and it's just kind of like, you are supposed to serve the people. And we as like are a people of social workers that care about child welfare, for example, like want to advocate, want to know your opinion, want to know your bill, want to get in your business, So it's like, it's kind of like our job to annoy them, but also do it in a respectful and like lovely way. So that's kind of the whole point of lobbying, where it's like you basically try to bother the person so much where they have to respond, or where they say yes or no, or give them an opinion about something, or even just a meet and greet of like who they are, what they represent, what are their bills for and against. Unfortunately, I'm sorry if not everyone had a really good experience about this, but just even meeting a representative like is a big deal. So I would say everyone should give themselves a pat on the back if you attended one of the sessions, even if it was awkward, even if like it wasn't really flowing. You met a representative today, which not a lot of people can say. So
All right, well, we do have the rest of the presentation on how to engage with representatives and also how to lobby for specific things that you may be passionate about. So we are going to go ahead and move on to our activities that we have going on coming up next.
okay, so we kind of got you out already, but we want you to do a 60-second lobbying exercise. So find something in your room and put in the chat how you would sell it. Why is that important to you? Why would you make it valuable? And why should we want to buy it? So, for example, I have honey. Honey is really essential for me to utilize when I have a sore throat. It's a natural remedy. It helps bees get jobs. I use it in my tea, and it comes in a really cute bottle that I can recycle later. So yeah, honey, good job.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could go too. Yeah, that works. So I've got this handy dandy little like 3-in-1 charging port station. Can do my phone, my watch, and my AirPods all at once. And why is it important to me? Because I'm a multitasker and that thing multitasks. And why is it valuable? Because I can't do everything at once and it does. And why should you buy it? I mean, it's amazing and it's all in one spot. It's great. By being able to sell these small things and things that maybe don't necessarily matter, it just gives you the basic foundational skills to lobby for the things that do. And so while I'm maybe trying to sell you this 3-in-1 charging port, by being able to confidently say why it's important to me and why it should be important to you, you're going to be able to do that with larger bills.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to come on the chat for 60 seconds, or go in the chat and tell us what you're going to sell us, or come on camera. Ooh, okay. Water bottle, super convenient, environmentally friendly, helps you hydrate in the long run, and improve and maintain your health. I would buy that. We all should be drinking water. Self-care, people. Okay. Anyone else in the chat or want to come on mic or camera with us? It's okay. There's only 20 of us here, so not a large group, just like a nice discussion. Let's see. Oh. I guess not. I'm so sad. Charcoal acne scrub. Okay. How would you sell us that? Let's see, Derry, what you got? Okay. Maybe the chat is lagging. I'm not sure. Or maybe you all should respond in the chat.
It may take a little bit to type everything out.
Oh, this is true. And also trying to find something to lobby when we only gave you like less than a minute.
We'll practice lobbying for a real bill in a second, but just, having the basics down is always great. Shannon says a parsley potted plant, good for salads, calms you down, easy to plant, free food, period. I love plants. I think I have like 10 in my room. So I appreciate that.
Perfect. Okay. So we will continue, but it's just one fun little exercise you can practice at home. So, Chris, student Stay on the Hill, you're here. What is it? It's a full day of advocacy, lobbying, and fellowship and networking. Here's the schedule if you don't have it already. I can put in the chat for you if you want. But what we're doing is we're advocating on this bill. So if you didn't know, now you know. So it's the HR 5856 21st Century Children's and Families Act. So the mission of the bill is to amend Part B and E of Title 4 of Social Security Act to expand non-discrimination protections for children and families and offer greater flexibility to the state before petitioning to terminate parental rights and improve the lives of children in foster care. So all that jargon means is that a lot of foster care placements get confusing based on race, socioeconomic status, different things like that. So if anything, this is to try to help become more equitable. Also, if you have a relative or a family member in your same area, to help find blood related families, read them the parental rights, different things like that. What I say this bill maybe lacks is the protection of queer babies. It also maybe lacks, how it changes if they move state lines. How does that look like? But for now, we're going to have a position where we're for this bill. And so this is introduced by Karen Bask, D, in 11/4/2021. And it has passed the House, and I think it's still being amended in the Senate, if I remember correctly. Grace, do you have anything to add?
No, you covered it.
Okay.
All right. And then the next bill we have is the Electoral Count Act Reform of 1887. And so the mission of this is to reform it, which dictates the counting of electoral votes following a presidential election. So essentially what it's describing and what it means is that there has to be now a 1/3 majority vote in the chamber to see an objection with the Electoral Count Act. And so with that, people can't just say, oh, hey, I object, and then the counts are dismissed. And so what it has to do is there has to be a certain number of elected representatives who all disagree with the Count Act in order for there to be an objection and a recount. Marissa, do you have anything to add?
Even though this Electoral Count Act isn't a bill, what you could be asking representatives is, hey, there's no bills on reforming the Electoral Count Act of 1887. What is your office doing to reform this bill or to improve it? Because it hasn't updated in over 100 years. Oh, no worries, Derry. We appreciate you.
All right, so now just to kind of apply the whole, pick an item and sell it thing, we're now going to pick a bill. So you all should have the presentations that we had sent out yesterday, which I'm sorry they didn't get out sooner. That was a technical difficulty on our end, but they are presentations of what the bills go into, a little bit more in depth than what we just described. And so basically you're just going to take 10 minutes and you can put it in the chat. You can come up on the screen with us and share it out loud, or if you just want to say it to yourself or to your pet that's with you, just try to phone big for the bill. So for instance, hello, my name is Grace. I go to the University of Missouri. I was wondering if you knew whether the Children's and Family or whether the Bass administration has any plans to meet the demands of the Children's and Family Bill proposed. And here's a story that I have working with kids in foster care that I believe kind of resonates with the reasons you should meet the demands of the bill.
Yeah, sorry, let me get back to Taylor. Hi. You have a Zoom call, not this one. I'll message you privately, but yes.
Yes, so just feel free to do it in the chat. Feel free to come up here. We would love maybe 2 volunteers just to kind of phone bank to us or phone bank to the rest of the group as to why maybe you have a really personal connection to one of the bills and you want to talk about it, or you've seen how election disparities have impacted people you know, then maybe that's something you can speak on when trying to phone bank for these bills. But if anything, we'll just give you all a few minutes to do that. All right. Additionally, this is kind of going to be the end of our presentation, was just with like the workshop, just in case any of you did want to practice. We do know that we should have done this earlier within the day, but things happen, schedules get rearranged, and people can't come to things at certain times. So we're sorry that we didn't have this resource for you all whenever you were going to do your meetings with the representatives, but we hope that you can take the things that you've learned in here and, honestly, just the script with you whenever you're out lobbying for other things, because we know that every single one of you is competent and confident and able to do the kind of work that changes the world. And so this is just the first start to that. And this is just the beginning of all the amazing things you guys are going to be doing. So if you guys have any questions, now would be a really great time to ask either Marissa or myself. If you want to ask us about our experiences lobbying or our experiences within policy or within social work itself, we would love to also hear from you guys and what cool things you've learned today or hope to learn in the future and take with you out into your careers. So I have never had so the question was, did you take a class on lobbying or did you just learn on the job? So I have never had a class in lobbying. So mine was definitely learned through experience. I actually started learning through my student assistantship within CRISP. So if any of you guys have worked with Dr. Day before, she's one of the panelists in our child welfare session right now. And so she basically brought me in and gave me the kinship bill, which is a bill Karen Bass has not released yet. And she gave me all of her policy proposal, and she told me to make a brief out of it. And I had no idea how to do it. And so my biggest thing was just to ask people, because that's the best way to learn, is by leaning on each other. And so I made the policy brief. Nevo, he's also one of our people on our student leadership team. He helped me out. And then I actually got to plan one of the congressional briefings. And so through that work with Dr. Day and through the work with CRISP, I've gotten to have some experiences I don't think I would have ever gotten without their kindness and this opportunity. What about you, Marissa?
Yeah, I never really took a lobbying class, but during the tuition strike at Columbia University, there were like older students, like master's and doctorate students, asking for a fair labor. It was a labor rights campaign. And so they shared resource with me like through social media. So it's kind of like through that, it was like, okay, here's how you email. These are the representatives. This is how you send an email. This is how you send social media. This is how you do a Twitter storm. This is how you do this. So I kind of learned volunteering for a labor rights campaign with my university. And so I remember calling the White House and I was just like, yeah, labor rights, unions, please. And so not really knowing what I was doing, but then I got a bill I got a letter from the administration saying like, oh, we heard your concern. I'm like, I just got a letter from the White House. Like, what is this, real life?
She said, "I made
cool.
it."
Yeah, I guess I made it. Yeah, so I think it's really grassroots activism is a great way to start lobbying, because if you have a call or a campaign, or it's just an issue that you care about, and that if there's a lived experience with, someone being hurt, or like a lived experience where someone's being marginalized and oppressed, and you can rally people in that, and you can activate that catalyst for change and invite people to be like, hey, we're upset about this, let's take it to the Capitol, like even from a local, state, and a federal level, that's also other ways that I guess you can learn on the job, or you can just start lobbying in your own. And to Emily's point, I kind of started during the Bernie administration, like during the, Feel the Burn campaign, like 2016 is kind of when I started lobbying for the first time. I really felt the burn, and it's still there, I can't really say much about that. But I guess what I've further learned about lobbying is you have to self-advocate and know that, who you are and what you represent is the people and the masses in the community that you are coming from. And even though you may be tokenized, or even though you may be the only brown or woman in the room, where it happens, going Hamilton, your voice is needed, and your voice matters, and you do have that power and that agency. And so it's like, be a force to be reckoned with, And there's no qualifications for lobbying. It's just like, if you care about something, just make your voice heard.
I will say, if you want to work as a lobbyist, you do have to have a certain certification, but to lobby for things, you don't have to have that. I mean, if you want it as a job title, then there's one thing, but anybody can lobby for things. And, we talked about earlier that one of the key portions and one of the key aspects of lobbying is having those personal experiences to touch on. And, through social work programs and through our practicums and our field placement, we get those experiences, and we get to have the work, like, experience to touch on whenever we're making those phone calls and we're sending those emails. So even if you don't feel ready to go out and call someone or go out and do something, just start somewhere, and start by going to work. I to touch a little bit on Morgan's question, we'll get back to some other ones, but just to skip ahead, I do work in domestic violence pretty heavily in my area. And for me, domestic violence lobbying is so important, because our client stories aren't just this like person has been abused, but this person has been abused and their child was affected, and now they're homeless, and now they don't have a job. And it's so much more than just one sentence, but it is a whole story. And so for me, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is incorporating same-sex domestic violence training within law enforcement. And that's not a bill that's currently on the table. And so what I did was I found, I got all this research together, basically saying, what are all of the states' different requirements for domestic violence training in their law enforcement programs? And then which states have the highest population of the queer community within them? And so what state needs this the most? And then I figured out who can make that change. And so for me, it wasn't a representative that I was going to contact, but it was the post board for Texas, which is the Peace Officer Standards and Training. And so I think one of the first things in lobbying is, who do we talk to and who do we get to make the change? Because it may not be a representative. So in my case, I talked to them, and now I'm in the process of presenting my idea to them and presenting what they would implement and how they should implement it, and then going through their process to get that covered. Because at the end of the day, even the smallest actions go a long way, especially with the clients that we help. I hope that answered your question, Morgan. If you want to chat more, we can always go to the networking section of Hop In later and connect on that. So.
Yeah, like I guess one experience that I had lobbying was last year. I was a student at the Chris conference, and I met with representative in Brooklyn. And so being from New York City, I was like, hey, like there's no legislation or policy that talks about cybersecurity, like fraud. or like, I don't know if any of you've seen the Netflix documentary about the Tinder Fisher or something like that, where the guy like,
Swindler.
yeah, Tinder swindler, where he steals all the money from people, and it's like identity theft, fraud, but it's like there's no accountability. They don't get that money back. They're in so much debt. So I had friends experience a similar thing through social media and through online platforms like that, but there was no legislation to protect them. No legislation to say like, hey, this is a part of identity theft, even though you may have known the person. It's like there's no way to compensate that. So I was like, hey, you're in charge of cybersecurity. Like, how are you trying to protect people's wealth and money and management in cryptocurrencies? Or how are you doing this to protect those who are affected by this type of identity theft? So I was already advocating for this before it got popular on Netflix. So that was kind of like one of the first lobbying sessions I had, where like I met with the representatives on Today and Lobby Day. I followed up with an email with them with other proposals and other bill ideas I had. So I was like really excited. I think now they're in the process of like having more cybersecurity efforts and bills because of that conversation that we had like a year ago. So that's kind of one of the opportunities. But how I see the formula or the method to the madness of lobbying is you have to have a story first. You have to have a narrative, a story, a shared experience with other people. Then you have to have data and research to back that up. And then what are your proposed ideas, or what change do you want to see and you want to make through the lived experience and through the data that backs up their truth? So that's kind of how I see lobbying, where it's like, hey, look, for instance, there's a Gross Highways Act right now, which is a bill that says there shouldn't be highways near a 5-mile radius of schools because environmental toxins, racial injustices, all that jazz, asthma, things like that. So it's like, okay, here's the data. Here's a story of like, hey, we have a lot of public health issues for low income people who live within who attend school within a 5-mile radius of a highway. This is the data of asthma attacks, of diabetes, of high blood pressure that's affected through those environmental toxins. And how do we lobby students? Because I used to work for ACLU or NYCLU. And so we used to have high school and college students lobby or be trained on know your rights for lobbying for environmental justice issues, which is embeddedly a racial issue. So it's like, how can we have our representatives accountable and actually act on this, where they can say, oh, no, we shouldn't build schools in a 5-mile radius because, environmental toxins, air pollution, So that's kind of one example I could point out. But
I think just to kind of address the basics of lobbying and kind of just like of the formula Marissa was talking about. We do our research, we tell our stories, and then we advocate for those. And the thing is it seems overwhelming when you put it all together. But at the end of the day, each and every one of you is taught how to do all of those things separately through your classes. You know how to do research, whether that's through, your research methods class, or you're doing a dissertation, or you're just doing a research paper for one of your classes. Like, you know how to do that, and you know how to tell stories. And I think social workers are specifically good at that compared to other fields, is because our entire job is based off connecting with one another. And so you can do both of those. And then the last thing is, you all are advocates just by being social workers. And so the last part just comes so easily. And when trying to distinguish the difference between lobbying and advocacy, as Derry was asking, there isn't one, because lobbying is a kind of advocacy. And so, advocacy may be saying and standing up for injustice. It may be going to run election engagement and election or voter registration. Advocacy may be going to work at a domestic violence shelter, or going to serve at one of the, youth programs within your city. Lobbying is just a specific type of that advocacy, if that makes sense. Marissa, do you have anything to add?
I think advocacy is kind of like taking action for yourself and for your community, and hoping to petition for change that will make life better than how you left it off. Or if you were to do nothing, you left it better than when you left it, if that makes sense.
No, that's so poetic. I love it.
Yeah. And so I think lobbying is just that form of, you're just doing it with a lot of political people who have high titles, and you don't have to be scared of them.
No,
Because
because
we have the voting power to vote them out as well as vote them in.
and they're just people.
Yeah.
They're just people. And they started exactly where you are.
Yeah. Definitely. Let's see. It is 4:48. We have around 12 minutes left. Let me go back to the question slide. Don't mind me.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments about what they have learned or what they're excited to lobby for in the future?
Yeah, or even just topics or issue areas that you're passionate about. Let's see. Mental health models in educational settings. That's a huge one, Alexandra. That's a huge can of worms. But I totally agree. Like, this is why we need like school social workers in the field. You know what I mean? Or like clinical social workers. Yeah, because I feel like mental health, self-care practices, it can be watered down as just like taking a nap, going for a walk, or different action steps. But to really teach mindfulness, like that would be so transformative, you know?
Mhm. I do kind of have an example for that. So basically, a form of lobbying doesn't have to be like talking to a representative, but for me, I'm creating this new, Title IX training within my university. And so I'm lobbying to the system, which is basically the head of all of our underlying universities. And so I'm telling them, I'm seeing our students have an unmet need when it comes to like faculty being mandated reporters. And now I'm talking to teachers who don't feel supported in them being mandated reporters. And this is why we need the change that I'm trying to create. And so now we're developing this whole training through like several collaborations of offices, and we're going to implement it. And it's going to be so cool. And that wouldn't have been done had I not said, this is the problem we're seeing. Here are statistics to back it up. And this is why we should do it, which is exactly what we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually just met with another representative who was a political social worker, but she worked for his organization that is trying to advocate for childcare for single family households, because she works with domestic violence families in shelters.
Yeah.
And said, instead of mandated reporting where we're policing and being a part of the problem, we could do mandated supporting, which if you just Google mandated supporting, there's a lot of cool resources about that. But it's like, instead of being a part of the problem of over policing people, over policing families, and ACS or CPS, getting involved, protecting those rights, and especially protecting queer babies or trans queer youth in new legislation is a huge one. But I brought up how I was a mandated reporter for this family, and I was working with a queer baby, I'm gonna say, or they disclosed to me that they were gay, or a foster youth. And then the family kind of came up to me and said, like, oh, well, if they're gay, we're gonna consider not adopting him. And I was just like, what? It like just threw me for a loop, and I like advocated to my supervisor. I was like, hey, we discussed about their sexual expression, but I didn't want to come out and out them. And there was just a whole spiel, and I was just like, I don't want to be a part of the problem where I feel like I have to mandate report this family because it may not be a good fit for the student who is expressing their identity. So that's like one example of like how social work is a good tool to help people, but we still got a long way to go.
And you all have some great ideas within the chat. There's reforming the housing first policy in DC by Morgan, serving the underprivileged for Derry. Andrew says protesting the rights of trans queer youth in the face of all of the new legislation sweeping conservative states. Yeah, all of these are great. And I hope you all, if you can take away one thing, not only, how to lobby, but just taking away from this, session that you all have so much power and just being passionate, and you all are so capable to lobby for these things and make those changes that you want to see. And this is just the start of all of our careers, and we have so much more to do and so much more time to do it, and that is so inspiring.
Definitely. And honestly, really highly encourage you all to network with us, network with each other. I'm gonna give you my LinkedIn profile right now, Grace, if you want to do that too, so we can connect. That'd be really fun.
I love LinkedIn. I use it like it's my Instagram. I'm obsessed with it. Simply put.
Yep. This is my LinkedIn. Hi, everyone. I'll throw it in the chat. So if you want to network, have an informational interview together, lobby about something together, or just rally for change, or just send memes, I don't know, we could do that. What? Yeah, but highly encourage you all to utilize the networking session, because you are all awesome as well. Alexandra, thank you very much. Yeah, so that's the end of our session. We can hang out for 5 more minutes. But yeah, if anything, it's 5 o'clock, so I think we're gonna head to the main stage again.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Oh, mine's above. Mine's above Alex Grace's. It's in the chat somewhere. But yeah. Thank you, everyone. Sweet. Here, can I play some music? I'll play some music while y'all leave.
You gotta compete with the DJ's music. See what is best.
I'm all about like indie pop right now, like Arlo Parks. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Did you hate what you were out of habit? Remember when they caught us making out after school?
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
So I know why we lasted 2 months.